Part 37. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 361. Many players were stunned for a moment as if their throats were stuck by fish bones, their eyes bulged as if they wanted to say no, but no sound came out. Miss Yao looked around the players in the circular hall and said slowly, according to the wars in the past month, Feng Guo participated in the Peninsula War between Nightstar Continent and Broken Continent, with 1 million players participating, and the war commission paid by the four lords was 760 million. Then there was the war to destroy the Principality of Greenwich, with 300,000 troops participating and 290 million war commission. The commission for a small-scale war is around a few million, but at the level of World War, the cost and expenses of the war have doubled, and usually only professional players and wealthy people can afford it. Another advantage of war is that it can be used for gambling, just like the black market boxing or Marseille 100 years ago. If there are many participants, a victory in a war may make tens of millions for free. After saying this, Miss Yao then slowly assessed the strength of the Nihilum Guild. Haha, Dusk City is indeed very powerful in the north, but it may not be enough in front of Nihilum. Several players immediately said secretly, "Sister, don't be modest. Dusk City is one of the top 40 forces in the country. Don't you think it can't even resist Nihilum?" The players looked unconvinced and knew that there was no such thing as a free lunch. With the progress of the times, the rate of idiots has always been on a downward trend. Of course, it is impossible for them to meet an idiot lord who would stand up for them after hearing a few words. We need to discuss it," the player whispered. Miss Yao immediately nodded in agreement. All the masters in the Mage Tower knew that although Miss Yao pretended to avoid it, she was actually listening to the players' conversations quietly. "I only have 2 million in the bank, and it seems that I have to take it all out this time," said a pitiful man who actually likes speculation and started from scratch. Another man shouted, "It's hot. Where can I find money? I lost everything when I bought equipment and potions from Dusk City and Vank family a few days ago." Many players are facing a difficult situation. Although money can be earned slowly, time waits for no one. They don't have any good friends around them, so they have to look at a representative with relatively large power. "Let me analyze it for you." The representative said nonsense without any confidence. "Our area cannot resist Nihilum's attack, but Dusk City can't really let us fall into the hands of the enemy. If Nihilum grows, they will be the first to be harmed." "That's right, but..." The players present discussed for a long time but still couldn't find an effective persuasion method and bargaining weight. After Miss Yao found out the players' background, she pulled them to the negotiation table and decided to make a quick decision. After one round, they were indeed no match for Miss Yao's words and were defeated one by one. After learning a secret and true gossip, the Vank family is preparing to cooperate with Nihilum, the players chose to agree to her request. The players don't know that even though the Vank family is powerful, they only choose to intervene and not get involved. This means that they will face a double blow for some time. The result is determined. First, 3,832 lords in the surrounding areas must pay a war commission of 40 million gold. Second, in the next 3 months, all players must pay an additional subsidy of 18 million gold every month. Third, the army of Dusk City will participate in the form of mercenaries, not accept the command of any player, and can be stationed in the player's territory without any restrictions. Miss Yao, who has the upper hand, then contacted Gregor, and the two sides are ready to join forces. The arrogance of the elves cannot be left alone. As a subordinate of the Fallen Temple, they must fulfill their obligations and responsibilities within their authority. The coalition went to the south of Talange to maintain order and control the war. There are few opportunities to change the offensive and defensive positions in the bloody battle. Shen Xian led hundreds of thousands of demons to the God Punishment Fortress and was at peace on the way, wandering back and forth along the battle line. A few players thought that reinforcements had arrived and charged in a rush, but who knew that the enemy simply ignored them, and more often, Shen Xian would launch a sneak attack when the demon army was slightly weaker. 2 hours later, the army arrived at the God's Punishment Fortress, a huge fortress erected in the magma with terrifying patterns carved on it, about 5 times the length and width of the elemental gate. What he didn't know was that there were 1 million demons entrenched in the God's Punishment Fortress, and he had to personally cut them off. The strength gap between the two sides was obvious, the weaker one was stronger, and it took half an hour to recapture the God's Punishment Fortress occupied by a level 162 NPC. Shen Xian then hurriedly arranged defense facilities around and inside the fortress. The outer periphery was a magic circle, a blood magic circle that absorbed souls, and the Purgatory Angel was like a living creature sitting on the top floor of the God's Punishment Fortress, and the swirling blood cloud absorbed energy from all directions. Hundreds of thousands of demons crowded at the 6 city gates. On the second floor of the fortress, which was 100 meters high, the exposed part of the city wall had rows of catapults with exaggerated shapes and burning flames. There were 3 rows in each direction in a staircase shape, with a height difference of 50 meters. There were 30 catapults in each row. Each catapult had an attack power of about 100,000, which could kill hundreds of inferior demons or 1/5 of the health of a big demon at once. In addition to catapults, there were many more unheard of weird things. For example, the strange eyeball on the top of the fortress, and the law and halo that appear and disappear like a net. After an hour, the defense was completed, and a demon army appeared in the field of vision. Shen Xian did not command it personally, but let the following players and NPCs take charge, and the weak demon army was wiped out. After 40 minutes, a new army appeared, with more troops than before. Shen Xian and Yan Yao were still staring at the Purgatory Angel statue in a daze. Rather than being in a daze, it is better to say that the two of them were jealous of the Purgatory Angel statue. The Purgatory Angel statue is the masterpiece of the Masters of Hell. It tempted the divine creations of the two glorious gods with the beauty of love. In the end, the two angels finally became the symbol of evil. There must be a price for falling. After experiencing love, the angel with blood wings who annihilated divinity was sealed by the angry god. The Master of Hell took it back through conspiracy, and finally the Purgatory Angel statue became a monument-like existence. In fact, at the level of artifacts, there is no distinction between the characteristics of strategy and individual soldiers. The principle of different paths leading to the same destination also exists in the fantasy world. The most fundamental secret is the simplest, so artifacts will not have any characteristics. If you want to describe it in words, the best word is strong. Purgatory Angel statue, artifact, the result of the sealing of the two most proud gods of the Lord God, attack power 15,000, defense power 5,500, attribute enhancement 40%, life recovery enhancement 200%, magic recovery enhancement 200%, condition level 120, evil characteristics, skill death, causing the upper limit of life value of units within a range of 10 km to reduce by 25%, permanent characteristics, requiring specific divine arts and potions to remove, solidification, release permanent solidification effect on a unit or building, get the protection of the Purgatory Angel statue, with hostile units approaching will be subject to 6 checks of 9th level mystical faction spells, innate holy evil protection, immunity to 2300 damage, immunity to death damage every 300 seconds, blasphemy, causing a faith collapse effect within a 100 km range covered by the Purgatory Angel, greatly reducing the piety of believers, serpent oath. Punishment for those who use the Purgatory Angel statue, attribute reduction of 20%, lasting 18 hours, purgatory space, convert the surrounding world to the laws of hell, and strengthen the attributes of hell creatures by 10%. Second update. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 362. Shen Xian gently touched the surface of the Purgatory Angel statue, feeling the unparalleled majesty and solemnity seeping out of it. It's indeed a good thing. It's a pity that we can't get it, isn't it? Yan Yao chuckled softly. The two of them looked at the battlefield in the distance almost at the same time. A black streak spread toward the nearby area, as if it wanted to engulf the fortress. Their faces became slightly serious, and the two hurriedly came to the fortress's open-air platform. Report on the latest situation. There are more than 5 million demons within visual range moving in our direction. Where's the strength? Beyond the 9th level are lower-level demons. The scenery he saw was pulled in and zoomed in. Shen Xian saw the arrogant Abyss Lord in the black tide. The totem-like military flag symbolized the dots of legions. At this time, they were advancing towards the God's Punishment Fortress. The generals assigned him another difficult task. Shen Xian thought, lowering his head slightly, but said to the players below, "It's not enough just to rely on the few of us." "Is there any way?" the player asked immediately, looking nervous. More adventurers didn't know their fate and lay tiredly on the solid stone slabs of the fortress to rest, hoping to relax their nervous minds and cope with the war that might come at any time. In hell, there are endless ways for smart players to use them. Shen Xian closed his eyes and thought for a moment, and had a solution in mind. When he told his plan, most of the players below were in an uproar. Forged military orders. How is that possible? The player seemed to think that the plan he proposed was rebellious. But Shen Xian said without any awareness, "Dead people can't speak, even the lords of hell don't know how to get the information they want from the undead." Then his expression tightened. "This is the only way we can repair the Angel of Purgatory as soon as possible. Only by repairing can we win the war." After he finished speaking, he continued to add, "And I said, we are insignificant in the bloody battle. Don't try to compete with the entire abyss with the power of a legion. We can't find new ones. As allies, what we want is to reap the fruits of victory on the corpses of others." "That's true," Yan Yao continued, "if you want to live, you must sacrifice the death of others. We are degenerates, aren't we?" "Yes, we are the fallen," the player murmured, and then shouted, "Let us go. You don't need to worry about forging military orders. Your duty is to defend this place." Shen Xian ordered Shadow Dragon to take Yan Yao with a fresh military order to deceive some friendly troops. Although he was going to use them as cannon fodder, he would still be involved even if he was discovered, because a dead player cannot prove his guilt. The same goes for NPCs. Hell Lord Hagen seemed very excited because he had been appreciated by the Hell Generals and received a secret order. He could clearly identify the terrifying power contained in the military order. There was no lie. When he received the order in an instant, he led more than 100,000 great devils under his command and rushed towards the Divine Punishment Fortress, preparing to fight for the generals. But when he actually led his army to arrive, he was first attacked by the demon army and lost a lot of manpower. Then he was attracted by a terrifying magic circle. More than 50,000 big devils fell into the magic circle and turned into souls towards the God's Punishment Fortress. The top of the Purgatory Angel runs like a statue. The statue of the Purgatory Angel became brighter and brighter, and the magnificent power that seemed to burn and go berserk radiated to the surroundings like boiling hot water. The fortress of God's punishment is safe and sound. The magma at the foot of the fortress can't help but surge and roar, and layers of invisible law power extend further into the distance. Laws are the bones that build the world, and matter is the flesh and blood of the world. The two form a completed world. The area affected by the law seemed to be in another world. The weak lower-level demons lit up with a strange light and exploded immediately. The power of the upper-level demons was weakened. They were originally level 160 and became lower levels. Similarly, many skills, talents, and attributes it will be changed and banned due to changes in laws. Surrounding the Divine Punishment Fortress are the forces of law left by hundreds of layers of Hell Lords, which form the most invisible line of defense for the fortress. When the Hell Lord Hagen died, it became the source of power for the Purgatory Angel statue, and the sleeping fortress defense line gradually recovered. In the distant abyss, the bottomless sea of blood breeds demons that symbolize chaos and disorder. The demons do not have the absolutely high AI of the devil, but they have another incomparable advantage: quantity. Using military orders to deceive hundreds of thousands of troops, the restoration progress of the Angel of Purgatory reached 70%. Shen Xian buried his own troops. At this time, the war below the fortress had just begun. Harry is a British player. He is a thief who follows the tide of demons and wants to make some gains. When he appreciates the magnificent scenery of the God's Punishment Fortress in the distance, he is actually deeply involved in the war. He cursed the abominable devil and wanted to run away from the devil quickly. Who knew that the road at the bottom of the steep and rugged fortress was not as easy as imagined? Terrifying fireballs were thrown down one after another, rolling up more flames. The 6 city gates bearing the mark of Belbaman, the Omniscient, sank downwards under the mechanical pull. Then, the sinking demon, the confused demon, many creatures common to hell surrounded him. He was killed instantly. His soul was pulled by the hidden red magic circle and flew along the inherent magic path towards the end of the sky, and merged into a statue that made him tremble. Before he died, he also saw a French player die. Unlike him, the French player discovered that the Purgatory Angel statue was actually an artifact and took a photo with the artifact in his soul state. He was a little unwilling and regretted not recording this great moment. The city gate would open once every half an hour, releasing a total of more than 100,000 demons to assist in the defense. The demons were determined to attack the will of the demons. In just 3 hours, more than 1 million demons fell under the God Punishment Fortress, and the other side continued to send troops. The situation was very serious. With the current situation, everyone can estimate that we can hold on for another 10 hours. Do you have any good suggestions? Almost all the troops in the surrounding areas are gathered here. The commanders below gathered together to discuss with each other. If we can conduct a surprise attack, abandon the God Punishment Fortress, and concentrate our superior troops to attack the demons, maybe we can resolve this crisis. But this is not our goal. Another player pondered slightly and denied the previous player's statement. A surprise attack can cause a reversal of the situation, but please note that it is short-lived and will not last for a few hours. The task will still be completed in less than 24 hours. The players were arguing quite fiercely. At this time, Yan Yao walked over gracefully and announced a new battle plan. The player thought about the new plan in his mind for a while, rolled his eyes, looked back at Shen Xian, who was standing next to the statue of the Angel of Purgatory as if nothing had happened, and said, "Well, okay, let's proceed according to the new plan." The third update of the legend. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Buledin Lao Buledin Si Buledin Me. Chapter 363. The plan was assigned step by step, but the war was still going on. The bloody battle had no end, and the red-blooded units had no possibility of retreat. Therefore, using normal thinking to solve the problem would encounter many troubles. In fact, the length of this battle exceeded the imagination of most people. Even if they could go offline at any time, they would feel that they were on the battlefield when they dreamed. This memory might be unforgettable for a lifetime. After 5 hours of the war, even the professional players selected by Shen Xian also had symptoms of fatigue. Fortunately, NPCs were not useless. Many NPCs had the ability to replace players. When the God Punishment Fortress was surrounded by demons, the Purgatory Angel statue was also repaired. This is not a kind of artifact, not armor, not a weapon, it can be controlled by the mind, and it is closer to the level of magic props. The halo of the angel statue enveloped the god punishment fortress, and a circle of bright fallen marks appeared on the devils. Their bodies were like charged electric lights, reflecting a kind of integrated brilliance. At the gate of the city, in 6 directions, the battle became more tragic. The second skill of the Purgatory Angel statue has been solidified and released on the God Punishment Fortress, and the defense system of the fortress has become more complete in an instant. Whenever the demons want to take a step forward, they must first endure several tests of wandering in the world of truth and falsehood. They often stop and are dispersed by the torrent of demons, becoming a major obstacle to the army's advance. Demons above the demigod level are not immune. Nothing can be completely ignored in front of the artifact. The restoration of the Purgatory Angel statue does give the possibility of continuing to fight, but it is still too early to say that it will last for 24 hours. I don't know what the generals mean. There is also Belbaman above the head, and countless beings who have crossed the endless plains to peek at this war. What is their position? As Shen Xian's plan gradually unfolded, he also learned about the birth of many new demon lords. Every powerful soul born on the battlefield will have a trace of telepathy. Every victory in a bloody battle is a change in which the new replaces the old. In addition to the transcendent masters and generals, the names of many lords will disappear, and their replacements will inherit their power. And Shen Xian also wants to further strengthen himself through bloody battles. The demon army in the field of vision was retreating step by step, but it was not as fast as expected. It seemed that it would last for several hours. The demon army, which had the advantage, crossed the bridge, passed through the city gate, and marched towards the interior of the God Punishment Fortress. I am afraid that all the players present saw Shen Xian's intention to gather the enemy's strength for a devastating blow, but the God Punishment Fortress after the demon invasion was probably a ruin and needed to be slowly repaired in the future. At the cost of sacrificing the integrity of the God Punishment Fortress, it was a pity that this fortress, which was equivalent to the late 6th stage territory, was completely destroyed, but it was not a loss for Shen Xian, because after all, he did not need to pay compensation for it. It was the most reasonable to use all available means. Some adventurers in the demon army also discovered this trend, but unfortunately they were helpless and had no right to command. The demon lord was still commanding the army to tear up the defense line built by the law and advance layer by layer towards the interior of the God Punishment Fortress. 2 hours later, the end of the demons was coming. The 6 city gates were completely surrounded and occupied by the demon army. More than 1 million demons of all kinds gathered in the fortress, and there were hundreds of thousands near the city gates. Just when the demons wanted to take advantage of the victory and recapture the God Punishment Fortress in one fell swoop, a black storm swept in. In an instant, the Purgatory Angel statue emitted a terrible brilliance like the sun, and the majesty it exuded made the powerful demons dare not approach easily. This artifact made by the Lord of Hell himself gradually broke free from the chains that bound it and slowly floated in the air. Shen Xian used the death spell, which caused the effect of reducing the upper limit of health by 25% indiscriminately. This is an extremely advanced curse. When the judgment of the God of Death came, a striking damage number immediately floated above the heads of millions of demons. For example, the demon lord instantly suffered 5 million damage, and the weak inferior demons suffered more than 100 points. In short, about 1.5 million demons were hit at the same time within the coverage of the death spell. The situation changed drastically. Don't look at the demons' weak appearance when they were resisting the battle just now. Now that they are in the stage of defense and counterattack, they are as energetic as men who have taken blue pills. Devouring a demon can strengthen one's own strength, and no demon will refuse the benefits of coming to the door. The demons attacked by the death spell are quite fragile, and are often attacked by several demons in turn, and die in a blink of an eye. Shen Xian ordered the demons to contain the power of the attack and gather a large number of demons, so that the Hell Angels can play the greatest effect. The battle line returned to the city gate after 15 minutes. As a price, the God Punishment Fortress was severely broken in various places. However, the demons rushing from the rear became sparse, which means that in the next few hours, the blow they suffered will be reduced. Shen Xian also rushed up himself. The commander will not be divided into experience because of good command. If you want to upgrade, you must kill monsters. And he also picked powerful demons to kill. The hundreds of experience points of weak demons can be almost ignored. Only demons above level 150 can provide him with millions of experience points. If he kills a demon lord like Hakuryu, he can get about 6 million experience points. If you include the experience bonus from Hell and Bloody Battle, the total is 15 million. During the process of defending the Divine Punishment Fortress, the demon army did not have a demon monarch of the level of Hakuryu, so the damage to the solid Divine Punishment Fortress was not as serious as expected. As a fortress with a long history in bloody battles, the Divine Punishment Fortress can safely withstand the attack damage of about 170 demons, and the losses will become smaller and smaller in the next battle. After 3 hours, there were almost no demons rushing over, as if the demon army was short of manpower and could not organize a large-scale offensive. Shen Xian sent a reconnaissance team to investigate the situation at the other end of the front line and decide whether to launch a counterattack based on the situation. Although he expected that there would be a sufficient number of demons waiting for him to harvest on the other side, in the past half an hour, he learned that the reconnaissance map was completely wiped out, and there was a level 170 demon monarch guarding the other end of the front line, so he had to reluctantly give up the decision to counterattack. The current focus has become to defend to the death, which is much less difficult. He ordered the army to repair the defense facilities, restore health points, and arrange magic circles, and spent the last few hours safely. Just got home, first update. Online game DungeonMaster. Author, Buledin Lao Buledin Si Buledin Me. Chapter 364. 5 hours later, the defense mission of the God Punishment Fortress was over. After 24 hours of persistence, Shen Xian gained a lot of experience. In addition, his various devils were upgraded countless times. However, after the fierce battle, the number of troops he led was at least 1/3, which was no different from when the 19th Legion went out. Both sides sent out new troops, with devil reinforcements behind them and demon legions in front of them. A new battle will start again. The number of reinforcements from Dusk City and Talango was extremely pitiful in the eyes of outsiders, but it became a flood and beast for the Gaul tough guy, because Dusk City has always implemented a policy of elite troops. The average level of units is relatively high, and the commander who appeared as a mercenary carried several epic equipment. Nearly 100,000 troops can definitely compete with 200,000 troops. On the first day of the coalition forces' intervention in the Southern War, the experienced coalition forces gave Nihilum, who was not very familiar with the Underground War, a small surprise. I thought I could rest easy after conquering a large number of players' territories and drawing an accurate and complete underground map. Who knew that the coalition forces were still elusive, using flying dragons for airdrop operations or using underground mazes for secret attacks? The tactics were varied, making Nihilum experience a strange war different from the ground war. A few hours later, the army that was sweeping the surrounding areas suffered a large number of casualties to varying degrees, and the culprit of the coalition forces was still nowhere to be found. Elves are an elite race. Their long life and low fertility allow each elf to possess powerful strength, either combat skills or magic. The regular army that the Nihilum Guild has painstakingly cultivated is the best among most elves, but today it suffered a great loss in the secret war, and the players of the Nihilum Guild looked gloomy. Fortunately, the elves are relatively united, and they will not retreat when they encounter losses. Instead, they strive to avenge their compatriots and punish evil. Nihilum has been standing at the top of the World Guild for a long time. With a strong cohesion, players privately exchanged experiences and discussed tactics to summarize their combat experience in the underground world. The Gallic warrior quietly went to the Vank family alone and extended an olive branch to another coalition that was helpful to them. The expelled players originally wanted to escape, but after paying a certain amount of war commission to Twilight City, they gathered together and, under the arrangement of several leaders, united to resist the attack of the elves. These players had no territory, but they still had a certain number of troops. With weapons provided by the surrounding major forces and familiarity with the local terrain, they were an army that could not be underestimated. A few hours later, Nihilum launched the second round of attacks, gradually adapting to the experience of underground operations and began to try to understand the opponent's tactics, find the gaps, and finally give a fatal blow. The war slowly unfolded in countless small-scale conflicts. In the mysterious world of the evil dragon, the great wizard Crisford slowly opened his eyes. He stared at the secret treasure not far away, with a bright smile on his face. After more than 10 days of research and cracking, he was finally only one step away from unlocking the godhood of the evil dragon. He can inherit the godhood, he thought proudly, worthy of being the great wizard Christopher, the legendary noble of Britain. He was complacent, and when he approached to pick the fruits of victory, a world broadcast message sounded and interrupted his action. Tip: Player Clown completed the deification and became the first god in the kingdom to ascend to the altar, rewarding 20 billion experience, equivalent to about half a level increase on the basis of level 150, 1 million reputation, and 100 believers with 70 piety. This broadcast undoubtedly dropped a heavy bomb among the players. Finally, a player became a god, just when the kingdom was operating for a year and a month, just when the bloody battle between the Abyss and Hell was in full swing, just when the battle for hegemony between the Night Star continent and the Broken continent was deadlocked. Finally, a player completed this mythical challenge. Although the players were not surprised by this, because most professional players knew that deification had little to do with the game process, they still admired this player named Clown. Players who become gods need to go through the trials of time, war, and soul. They need to overcome countless tests. Their mortal bodies will be transformed into divine bodies, and the fire of divinity will be ignited from then on, and they will no longer appear as mortals. Chris's mouth opened wide when he heard the news. Shen Xian, who was far away in the bloody battlefield, stopped fighting the devil and was stunned for a moment. Then, more players quickly exited the game and browsed the top websites in the global online gaming industry to find the players' information and videos, wanting to know who this unknown clown is. Unfortunately, it was difficult for players to find a little information about this player. Just as billions of players around the world were looking forward to more inside information, a new world broadcast sounded. Tip: Player Clown changed his name to KRYNN, and was in charge of the entertainment priesthood. The territory satisfaction of believers would have a bonus of 3 to 10 points. Clown's god name is KRYNN, and Clown is just his mortal name, symbolizing abandoning the past. After knowing the existence of Clown, many players began to think about the future situation of the kingdom. It is difficult for mortals to fight against gods. Shen Xian and Chris, who knew the details of Clown, both had unhappy expressions on their faces. On the 74th day of the bloody battle, when the fight between devils and demons was reaching a fever pitch, Shen Xian actually gave the command to Yan Yao with some excuse, and quietly started a conversation with Christopher in the virtual conference center. Clown, one of the 13 members of heaven, my first god actually. Christopher expressed an extremely depressed complaint about this matter. Shen Xian comforted him and patted the table. After all, we don't have the power to supervise, and we can't cover everything about heaven. But you have to speed up. It's not bad to be the second child. Isn't the New York soldier coming back? He has recovered now, and he will be there soon. That's it? Shen Xian paused again. Even if the evil Dragon King's priesthood is not of much benefit to us, you are indispensable in our national strategy. As for my side, I will do it. Yes, Christopher raised his fighting spirit and answered him seriously. After a second, he immediately asked dejectedly, but, what should we do about that? The current influence of the door is still not comparable to that of heaven. It is not the same as before. Is it possible? Are you really unable to find the list and key left by the dead old man? Shen Xian said, don't worry, I'm still looking. 15 years is not enough for a secret to sink into the sea. It will be solved soon. By then we won't have to worry about being crushed by heaven. The two looked at each other and smiled, like trusting partners. The encrypted channel was quickly closed after a few seconds, the data was deleted and formatted, and then they returned to the game. It is still impossible for gods to interfere in the mortal world. The first mortal god was born in the kingdom. In fact, this influence still has a long way to go before it explodes. Second update: save more votes. Theoretically, there will be a third chapter. I should be able to find out if it lasts the next morning. Online game DungeonMaster. Author, Buledin Lao Buledin Si Buledin Me. Chapter 365. Shen Xian is back online. Yan Yao said to him, you're back. What happened? She received the news that Clown was deified, and she didn't know whether Shen Xian would be troubled by this matter. Nothing, continues Shen Xian shook his head, took over the command, and commanded the Devil Army to fight against the Devil Army. Yan Yao had to remain silent after hearing this, and stopped asking questions. She stood behind him and took the responsibility of conveying orders. After that day, the new tasks Shen Xian received had fewer characteristics. There were rounds of similar conditions for resisting attacks, almost the same battlefield, the same troops, and even the commanders were almost the same. Demons are proud of their freedom, so they naturally can't be like real commanders and use troops like gods. So, Shen Xian had less things to do. Facing the devil monarch who changed the soup but didn't change the medicine, even the players below were familiar with it. He could only fight tirelessly in a few days to raise his level to 115. When Shen Xian was concentrating on leveling up, his speed was no worse than other players. Relying on the wealth accumulated as a lord in the early stage, Shen Xian's epic suit gave him a strong attack advantage, so his current level was no lower than that of players who specialized in leveling up, and he had entered the top 60 of the level ranking list. The first place has reached level 120, and is also a player participating in the blood battle. Only the blood battle can bring players a flying upgrade speed. The progress of the blood battle has reached 2/3, and the war in the south is relatively slow. It is hard to see anything from the simple numbers. The casualties of hundreds of people on both sides are simply a model of passive and lazy fighting. In fact, several complicated events occurred in a few days. For example, Miss Yao personally threatened the Vank family through the channel of the Fallen Temple that they should not assist the surface forces, such as negotiating with the player alliance south of the wasteland whether to participate in the war. The Nihilum Guild adopted a strategic tactic of detour attack, trading with the exiles in the south to steal more detailed underground maps. The two sides are fighting in secret. The background is that the Fallen Temple is in the midst of a bloody battle. The three masters are too busy to take care of the small things on the underground level. The desolate city does not have enough troops for support and military deterrence. The upper elves have not yet confirmed whether to turn it into their territory after purifying the underground world. Therefore, the war is far away from the residents of Dusk City, and Dusk City and even the surrounding territories continue to develop with abundant materials. Dusk City is also a special underground city. Originally, the underground city could not carry so many people and create so many elites, but because of its advanced strategic resources and technology, the development of Dusk City has exceeded the norm. Speaking of population alone, there is not much difference from the 300,000 required by the 6th stage territory capital, at most 50,000. Dusk City has only been upgraded to the 5th stage territory for 3 months. Of course, if you want to support a capital, you must own a piece of land with more than 5,000 territories, which is a big challenge, especially in the main material plane. The Pharaoh Empire occupies nearly 50,000 territories, more than 1/10 of the continent, so it has created a territory in the late 6th stage. Although other planes can develop freely, staying away from disputes means staying away from reality. The changes in reality have the greatest impact on the main material plane, and vice versa, other planes are not affected so much. This is the uniqueness of the main material plane, and Dusk City still has a long way to go. August 5th. The border between Hell and the Abyss. The bloody battle was like a carefully planned chess game. The generals demonstrated a war that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. The demon commanders played their characteristics and cracked the threats and attacks in a nearly violent way in the face of the wonderful chess game. During this period, Shen Xian completed 13 Bloody Battle Series tasks and 29 other branch series tasks, and accumulated 1.85 billion experience. He led more than 20 wars of all sizes, and the average online time during the bloody battle was more than 16 hours, which lasted nearly 15 days. At the end of the bloody battle, his level reached 119, and he made countless military exploits in the bloody battle. His reputation exceeded 1 million and he became a world-class celebrity. Even the gods had heard of his name, and his status rose. The bloody battle officially ended on August 6th. There was no celebration party. The gods were happy to see the outcome of both sides being hurt. Among countless bloody battles, the losses of both sides in this bloody battle were relatively small. The races with similar feuds did not fight to the death, and the losses were half less than expected. The gods asked for help from powerful gods one after another, wanting to get a glimpse of the direction of fate. Shen Xian received more support from Hell. After participating in the bloody battle, he learned more about how to fight against the gods. In other aspects, he gained nothing. In the south, the Nihilum Guild, which could not gain any benefits, lost patience and no longer used Taranj as the focus of attack. It stubbornly developed in the nearly 100 territories it had occupied, while deciding to hold a stalemate with Dusk City with the goal of splitting the silent wasteland. They would always launch attacks on their not-so-powerful enemies when there were loopholes. As long as there was an opportunity, they would take advantage of it. Nihilum's rogue behavior thus annoyed many people. It was as if the fallen temple had not completely occupied the underground world. The fallen temple's response to Nihilum was better than nothing. Apart from their actions, they did not take any substantial action. It seemed that in the eyes of the three overlords, as long as they did not capture the fallen temple's headquarters, the rest of the territories could be abandoned. The result did not exceed Shen Xian's expectations. There was one thing he did not know, that is, a second player's god was born in the past few days. In the eyes of players, the chance of becoming a god recently is a bit high, just like a bug. Although the gods in the fantasy world can be described as overwhelming, this number is formed over thousands of years and cannot be diluted. The number of gods in the world who are qualified to become gods will not exceed 2 digits at most. Unless in the mythological era, the gods fought fiercely and a large number of new gods were born, otherwise it would be difficult to give birth to new gods by following the principle of balance. After learning the news, Chris sighed and stepped up his plan to seize the godhood. Since the task could not be rushed, he finally completed the task successfully at the cost of several near-death experiences, and was only ranked 3rd. A group of people were allocated to him to form a true god church. In any case, a new god of wealth appeared in the other plane. Fortunately, it was not the power of heaven, and it had little impact on Shen Xian. What is important to Shen Xian is that he has recently converted all his savings of the past few years into cash and invested them in the country, about a billion, which has increased the value of Dusk City to nearly 10 billion. This means that other groups who want to buy the Dusk City territory must invest more than 10 billion, which is an unacceptable number for the top 500 companies in the world. However, for the expansion of Dusk City itself, capital investment plays an immeasurable role. Although no technology left in the Epic technology has been cracked, because the research and development cost of each technology is hundreds of millions of gold and various resources, in other aspects, the development progress of Dusk City has never fallen behind the top 10 forces. Experts estimate that at this speed, Dusk City can easily enter the top 30 with just one opportunity. The four lords of the Saint Otero's empire and the orcs in the south are fighting fiercely. The general trend of the world is just as the old saying goes, splitting and reuniting. For Dusk City, at least, in the past few months, no new forces have set their sights on it. Shen Xian decided to relax. The third update is set to 9 AM, so you can see it as long as you don't sleep in. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Buletin Lao Buletin Si Buletin Me. Chapter 366. A public island in the South China Sea is an industry of the Lock Group. It has a sophisticated security protection mechanism, and its purpose is only to provide a place for leisure and entertainment. The breeze was blowing gently. At this moment, Shen Xian was lying on the beach to relax. There were also several members of the Kangdu studio, members of countless branches of the Lock Group, and tourists from all over the world on the beach. The bloody battle was fierce, which was a big test for the player's mental will. He naturally needed to adjust himself by relaxing. It's not that you can't go online on the island, but the online time is much less than the previous few days. It only takes a few hours to take care of it. To be honest, Shen Xian still pays great attention to the combination of work and rest. When he is not in the country, he will listen to music, watch movies, or log into the battle network to kill a few newcomers. His spiritual life is quite fulfilling, and his material life also maintains a well-off standard. This is the most wonderful life. Therefore, when he was on the beach, the first thing Shen Xian did was to appreciate the rare coastal scenery in the country. There were also beautiful women as foils, most of them wearing bikinis, with curvy and charming bodies. Unfortunately, his usual friends didn't come much. Except for Miss Yao and Yan Yao, he didn't see many close male compatriots. Shen Xian felt a little disappointed. Of course, Potato Garden was familiar with him but not close. Even if he only logged in for a few hours every day, Shen Xian still had countless things to do. The alien plane was still normal. The Cult Alliance headed by the Principality of Lane unified many small and medium-sized countries in the south and gathered more than 20 million believers. The competition for faith on the continent was not very fierce. On the contrary, Shen Xian was completing his third job transfer task. The third job transfer was the final job transfer before the demigod. The earliest one could complete it at level 90, and the latest one needed to reach level 120 or 130. It was determined according to the benefits of the job. Unlike the past, it was completed through a simple ceremony. This time, the job transfer was divided into 3 steps. Shen Xian's third job transfer is Iron Tyrant, which requires a job transfer of level 115. The first step is to collect 2 items, namely the royal clay tablet left by the ancient Nian Rosh kingdom on the Azure Island in the northeast of the continent, and the diary of the ancient dragon in the underground palace of the ruined capital in the west where the undead are rampant. Then the second step is to find the center of the ancient forest prison in the territory of Nihilum, set up an altar, and summon the sealed Hell Lord Pallades. The third step is to complete the job transfer and become familiar with the characteristics and skills of the job. In Shen Xian's opinion, there is no need to make the task so troublesome. He first went to hell to find the generals and asked them to complete a wish he got in the task of killing the thief king. As a result, one of the 2 items required in the first step of the job transfer task was removed. He then rode the shadow dragon and traveled through the main material plane. It took 2 days to complete the task. Only 1 talent was added, the law, because the decline rate of satisfaction, civilization, prosperity, and miracles caused by war, natural disasters, and divine punishment was reduced by 50%. There are many more skills, such as several big moves with a 2-hour cooldown, mainly used for single combat, and an aura covering the entire territory. Just as he was recalling what he had done in the past few days, Miss Xiao and Yan Yao ran over. Miss Xiao's coming was nothing, Yan Yao's appearance was because of Shen Xian's invitation. Thinking of accompanying him to complete the bloody battle, Shen Xian, who felt that he was still very sympathetic to women, pulled the senior sister over. Moreover, Yan Yao, who served as a spy, would be easily suspected if her behavior was different from that of ordinary people all day long, just like 700 in the movie, picking up girls and doing business at the same time, so Shen Xian would come up with this plan. It was said in a high-sounding manner, but in fact, admiring the 2 people's swimsuit bodies and feasting their eyes was also a purpose. Shen Xian considered it very carefully, killing many birds with 1 stone, but when he wanted to secretly admire Miss Xiao's figure, which had become slightly plump in recent months, a voice that was enough to make him shudder rang out. "How is my daughter?" When Shen Xian heard this voice, he felt embarrassed as if he was caught in an affair. He wondered why Xiao Yan appeared at this time, and he came and went without a trace, as if he had practiced Qinggong. Shen Xian turned his head 90 degrees like a skilled craftsman, and saw Xiao Yan's face right next to him. His face was majestic without anger, and it seemed that he never smiled. If others would really be scared by this giant, Shen Xian calmed down a little and said, "Of course, Miss Xiao looks like her mother, she is a beauty." Unexpectedly, Xiao Yan didn't say anything to his answer, and immediately asked about his recent situation. Shen Xian had to chat with him and watched the 2 beauties walk away. If you really understand the strength comparison between the 2 sides, you will know that the situation is not good for the gate. It's just that the 2 major forces in the world have always abided by the gentleman's agreement. They gave up the means of assassination and PK each other decades ago, and instead adopted the way of playing games. The truth is that the gate is actually supporting, and the oppression from heaven is aggressive and very difficult to deal with. It's like playing chess, and the country is the most real chess game in history. Moreover, it is the ultimate chess game, a world that is perfect in all aspects, where data can be extracted and verified, and there is no possibility of perfection. Can there be an online game that can replace it? Unless the settings are different, the essence remains unchanged. In terms of military applications, it can be directly delivered to the military departments of major countries without much technical transformation, which will undoubtedly bring a huge change in the history of war in the world. On the other hand, investing in solving the problem of exploring the universe does not require any improvement. It is more related to life, industry, and trade. A small online game actually contains many connections with reality. Everything will end. Shen Xian said, "No one knows tomorrow. The struggle has been going on since a long time ago. Some people have paid their lives for it. The cycle, history is moving forward, but the struggle continues." This sentence I heard 15 years ago is also a prophecy. Just like the advancement of history requires an opportunity, the prophet can speculate, but he does not know the exact time. The only thing he can do is to do his best. "You don't have confidence?" Xiao Yan suddenly asked. "I'm afraid no rational person would be optimistic," Shen Xian smiled. "According to the current progress, billions of players have all integrated into the world. They have replaced NPCs and become an indispensable part of the historical process. They are either tyrannical kings or righteous heroes. The next few months before the end of the year will be a real war between royal power and divine power. That's true, but as one of them, I feel that my power is too weak, Xiao Yan said lightly. Kangdu Studio, Desert Border Alliance. Shen Xian listed the departments of the Locke Foundation that operate the virtual world. I think Miss Xiao must have made plans in advance, there is no need to worry. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 367. Xiao Yan left. Shen Xian returned to relaxation. He could rest peacefully for 3 days. Although he was idle, he actually had many tasks to complete. For example, Nihilum, who is very close at hand, has seized a piece of territory for development and refuses to leave. This behavior is really profound, and Nihilum will use it as a springboard to harass everyone in the future. At that time, you can go south or north. It is really an annoying thing stuck in the south of Dusk City. We can't give them a good life, at least we must continue to harass them so that the Nihilum Guild will retreat. Even a mature and excellent guild is often indomitable and united and difficult to be defeated by ordinary attacks. Shen Xian still has to make a decision. Such a move. There is also the material exchange technology recorded in the epic books of Twilight City. If Twilight City was a simple devil's paradise, it would naturally not require any material wealth, but this is not the case. Therefore, Twilight City must provide a variety of complex and diverse materials to satisfy residents' material needs and spiritual needs. The significance of the existence of material exchange technology is that if residents want to eat fish or use glass, Twilight City must travel thousands of miles to import it from distant places to satisfy the residents, thereby making satisfaction, civilization, prosperity, etc. promote. Material conversion technology can solve all troubles and create any substance. There are only a handful of cities that have mastered this technology, and most of them are in the Mage Tower. Real research requires hundreds of millions of gold and up to 300 hours to pave the way. Material exchange technology is a time-consuming and labor-intensive project. It cannot be decided by one person's ideas. Whether it is suitable and whether it should be implemented now must be carefully considered. If it is done too early, the research will show that the utilization rate is too low, which is meaningless. If it is too late, the costs spent on imports in the past will be too great, and the money will flow into other people's pockets, which is also inappropriate. Therefore, he could easily list a long list of things to deal with, and there were many others, such as personnel management and hero training, which he did not include at all. Moreover, Shen Xian is also a very high-ranking member of the section as expected. The saying goes that with great power comes great responsibility. He needs to coordinate the power of the players participating in the sect of the country. Just a few days ago, he provided Christopher with a large number of priests to establish the Dragon Vein Church, and asked Christopher to win over some small countries, a few lone green dragons, red dragons, black dragons, and a large number of sub-dragons. Unlike Shen Xian, Christopher is a true god, a genuine level 151 god, a godhead in charge of fertility and war, who can easily bestow power beyond mortals on one of his spokespersons. This is what Shen Xian is jealous of. If he also has level 151, he will really be free from heaven and earth. Even the powerful gods cannot completely destroy it. It is even easier to hide his own existence. He can easily accomplish many things. Challenge. However, he is from the evil camp, and he can only level up honestly. Anyway, after 3 turns, he mastered a big move called Shadow Warrior Avatar, and he created an avatar with the same shape as him except that the face is invisible, and his attributes are his 80% of the real body. That is to say, if the true god has 1,000,000 health points, the incarnation has 800,000. The remaining skill damage is also subject to this number. The avatar can leave and accept his control. If he dies, he will lose experience equal to the current upgrade requirements. 30% as a penalty, and no new incarnation can be created within 6 hours. The function of the incarnation can facilitate him to level up and complete tasks. The will of the incarnation is his will, greatly reducing the chance of his death. Now the members of the sect coordinate with each other and form a stable collaboration network with each other. Each player takes root and sprouts around the world, and then finally unites to become the ultimate power of the world. Heaven also follows their methods to get the most benefits at the minimum cost. At 6 o'clock in the evening, everyone was dining in the brightly lit restaurant. An unexpected incident once again disrupted the holiday plans of Shen Xian and even Miss Yao, Yan Yao, and others. The report was from a member of Kangdu Studio. He said in a panic, "The Pharaoh Empire has launched a war against the deserted city on the underground floor." Then the member quickly gave more detailed information. Just an hour ago, the garrisons of several major provinces of the Pharaoh Empire were mobilized. Myrindal sent an oracle from the kingdom of God, summoned the god to serve with the holy sword and the holy shield, and issued a conquest order against the deserted city. As a result, 100,000 human legions stationed above the deserted city frequently moved deep underground. These armies are nothing, because they are regional armies with a relatively low average level, only over level 30. Therefore, at most half of them can actually reach Desolate City, and most of them will be devoured by terrifying monsters. Why is Desolate City? Many players still don't understand. Logically speaking, Twilight City, a newly rising city, is more representative. If we are to crusade against evil, we should attack Twilight City. However, neither Melendal's will nor the Emperor's will can be speculated. Therefore, things let it go. 20 minutes after the army moved, new intelligence gathered again. Because no major war broke out in the Pharaoh Empire for a long time, the quality of the players' army could not be improved, and they all hoped to fight a war. Because of the incident in the desolate city, as many as 1 million troops were dispatched from all over the country. Even a large country like Pharaoh with a population of 60 million rarely sees this. If the players' enthusiasm had not been dissuaded by the Emperor, and 200,000 troops with an average level of more than 50 were selected from the conscripted army to enter the underground, I am afraid that this war would have evolved into a war of 1 million. The commanders of the war included many well-known commanders and lords in the empire. They attacked the desolate city in several directions, either along secret passages or breaking through the fortresses stationed by players. In short, the underground world, which had not suffered a large-scale attack for a long time, encountered a new attack again. Nihilum is not counted. The scale of the war is relatively small and the target of the attack is not very famous. On the other hand, the desolate city is a famous city and can be ranked in the top 10 in the mainland underground world. Now players in the surrounding areas are abandoning their villages and gathering troops to resist together. The performance of the players is much more organized than that of the players in the silent wasteland. It only took a few hours to form several legions and use the complex terrain to resist to the death. When Shen Xian learned the news, he immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. If it weren't for the fact that players could get intelligence more easily, I'm afraid that Desolate City would be captured within a few days. You know, the elite troops sent by the Pharaoh Empire are above level 50, a total of 200,000, and so many famous generals are involved. Dusk City just can't provide support for a while. If it wants to transfer troops, it needs to withdraw the mercenaries in the south to the northwest. The war with Nihilum a few days ago attracted about half of Dusk City's troops. The troops that are closer are all recruits and are not very useful. So many players hurriedly ate dinner, either logged into the game, or rushed back to Shanghai to prepare for a great change in this world. Try 3K tomorrow. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 368. Deserted City. The prosperous city where people used to come and go is now echoing with the cold chill of soldiers everywhere. The soldiers are approaching the city and the whole city is under martial law. Faced with the menacing enemies, Calicos and Lion can only choose this method. At the temporary combat headquarters in the center of the city, the two Marquises stared at the dense red dots on the map, the expressions on their faces no longer as peaceful as before. In the past few days, more than a dozen small fortresses around Desolate City have been destroyed, and several underground mazes have been penetrated. The enemy is overwhelming and advancing layer by layer, leaving Desolate City at an extreme disadvantage. The enemy's information seems to be quite accurate. Is there a spy? The two adults were guessing but couldn't figure out who it was. The crystal ball in front of him showed the scene on the battlefield. Nearly 100,000 troops blocked the 4 exits in the area around the deserted city, cutting off all the food and water supplies in the deserted city. The tens of thousands of players within the jurisdiction of Desolate City have also suffered continuous blows. Production buildings have been destroyed time and time again, and they are facing an era of scarcity of materials. The reserves of Desolate City can support more than 100 hours, but what happens after more than 100 hours are over? The two adults couldn't imagine it. Because the expeditionary force was dispatched, the strength of Desolate City was 2/3 of what it was before the bloody battle, and it was difficult for the fallen temple to immediately reinforce him. The great devil has transcended the constraints of this world, but they also have matching enemies to face. There is no way to get involved in these little things. In order to solve the problem of shortage of soldiers, mobilization orders were issued. One was to recruit 30,000 new soldiers, and the other was to mobilize a large number of apprentices in the Spell Academy. As a well-known institution on the mainland, the Curse Academy has thousands of young people who will become ministers and generals in the future. They have outstanding talents. If they die on the battlefield, the loss will be too great, but at least they can last for a while. The city walls were lined with soldiers, and there were knights near the city gates. More than tens of thousands of demons patrolled around, just to learn about the other party's latest movements. The intelligence system of Desolate City is also facing paralysis. Invisible hands have obscured the perception of wizards, making their spirits seem to be struggling in the mud. A terrifying existence is controlling the situation. In the underground world 10 kilometers away from the deserted city, 3 altars have been built in 3 directions. Under the altar is the land of the gods, and wisps of white light surround the statues of the gods. Several level 120 the divine attendant is suspended in mid-air to protect and punish those who want to harm the altar. Along with the invasion of the army, a large number of temporary military camps were built scattered around the city. If they underestimated and invaded rashly, what awaited the attackers would be a disastrous defeat with loss of face. In the conference room, Ryan shouted to Calicos, "Okay, old guy, I know that sending out the apprentices from the academy will kill many people, but what can you do? Do you want me to be so stupid?" He sighed, "I hope those nobles will know and send troops soon, otherwise their sons and daughters will suffer." Calicos snorted angrily, "So what, even if their relatives know it, is it still too late? The Pharaoh Empire is too provocative this time. If they want to kill us, why do you need to pull them in? With so many people and a few more students, wouldn't it be possible for a miracle to happen if we persist for a few more days? Maybe, the Lord will come to save us." Ryan grinned and patted Mysterine's head meaningfully next to him. "Look, his people are still here." Mysterine stood next to Ryan. She came to study magic. The Academy of Spells was the holy land of dark faction magic, and Twilight City could not reach this level for the time being. It's a pity that Calicos still held a negative view after listening to Ryan's words. "I don't think so. That kid is so cunning, and he obviously won't get away so quickly. I think we should stay safe." Twilight City. It has been 4 hours since the Pharaoh Empire invaded the underground world. Although all the troops sent by the Pharaoh Empire have not yet entered the underground, their efficiency is unusually high. Moreover, the opponent is also very familiar with the terrain, causing the deserted city to suffer huge losses. There is no superficial simplicity. Not only the lords are involved, but also the eye of judgment. Could it be said that it is another religious war? Shen Qian thought anxiously as he returned to Twilight City with a large number of players. Half of the lords of Twilight City were gathered in the conference hall that accommodated hundreds of people. Shen Qian was on top, analyzing the current situation. If Desolate City falls, half of us will be surrounded by surface forces. Although we are not sure whether the Pharaoh Empire has one or multiple targets, Twilight City will undoubtedly become the most likely target. Can our troops in the south be spared? Shen Qian shook his head. Even if Nihilum has nothing to do with the empire, the strong Gaul man will definitely come to harass him happily if he knows about the deserted city. Everyone has known about the desolate city for a long time, and any one of the millions of players in the entire empire who posted it on the internet is enough to cause uproar. Therefore, we need to mobilize corps from several surrounding areas in the south. The Blood Knights belonging to the Sunset Cult were sent out first. Now they are the only ones moving the fastest, followed by the Bloodstained Cross. The total of the two together is 18,000. The remaining legions are also being allocated, but except for the early troops that can arrive within 6 hours, the others will take at least 10 hours. There was simply no time. Yan Yao returned to Tailang's military affairs when she came back. The south was left to her and the players in the south were enough to resist for a while. Shen Qian and the fastest moving Blood Knights marched towards the direction of the desolate city, advancing along the avenue, divided into slender formations of 200 people at intervals. He opened several halos, and the legion passed through the northern fortress and entered the hundreds of territories of this hilly desolate city. The scene in front of him was in a mess, and the chaotic energy rolled up gusts of wind. He could sensitively perceive the diffuse holiness, which must be the masterpiece of the hateful Myrindal. Shen Qian's evil aura spread in all directions around his body like a tornado, and the earth then returned to death and corruption. A bright holy flame in the distance was getting closer and closer. The other party was wearing armor stained with golden light and weapons infused with energy, emitting waves of uncomfortable feelings. The holy flame became brighter and brighter, and hundreds of white knights and several player lords walked out of the light. Surface forces. Shen Qian was almost certain, but the other party also saw him, and it was too late to hide. While he was thinking, the other party also showed a surprised artifact, and the horse neighed continuously. With a stomping sound, hundreds of white knights blocked their way. "Who are you?" The player who shouted used a detection spell, but unfortunately failed. He used a true knowledge spell, but still failed. He could only stare at Shen Qian's level in a daze. And Shen Qian's name was also hidden by him with a special method of hell, not letting other players know, so as not to leak information. The information of the Blood Knight was exposed under the prying of the detection spell. The thick red shadow wrapped around the horse's hoof was as sticky as a pool of blood in the abyss, which was suffocating. The evil power also disgusted the White Knight on the opposite side. When confirming that the other party was an enemy, the White Knight raised the long sword in his hand one by one. The player shouted coldly, "Destroy them!" A wave of surging power that seemed to be formed by thousands of troops rushed towards him. The shadow dragon floated strangely in the sky, like a whale in the ocean, until Shen Qian summoned it, and the black dragon wings fluttered gently, also resisting each other with the corrupted green dragon breath. Rumble, the earth roared angrily, and the falling rocks above kept rolling down. The armor of the leading White Knight was corroded and melted in an instant, and a disgusting wound with maggots appeared on his chest. Then, a huge shadow fell in front of them. The body of the shadow dragon of more than 100 levels was no different from that of a mature dragon. In an instant, irresistible pressure spread all over the players and the White Knights behind him. Unable to move. Facing the shadow dragon of more than 100 levels, none of the hundreds of White Knights could resist. Although the time of being oppressed would be reduced due to their devout faith, This period of time was not the time for Shen Qian to perform. He swung his sword without any pretense and shouted, "I don't have time to waste time with you." The Blood Knight behind him also began to kill. A little ripple appeared on the bottomless darkness of the Shadow Dragon. Every time the eyes of the soul fire symbolized each movement, several groups of curse power enveloped the entire field. Weakness: the strength of units within a range of 100 meters decreased by 590 points. Decay: the spirit of units within a range of 100 meters decreased by 590 points. Chi-Chi: the blood of the White Knight flowed out, and the Blood Knight enjoyed it. Under the control of the Shadow Dragon and the killing of Shen Qian, the battle was decided in less than 10 minutes. No one escaped. There were only a dozen Blood Knights with half-blood. Keep going. With the support of Shen Qian's 80 loyalty and 80 faith, Shen Qian's order was an oracle. Armies marched towards the desolate city. Many players in the north, west, and east of the desolate city also came after hearing the news, not wanting the system city to fall. And the resistance they encountered was far less easy than Shen Qian solved. In the north of the desolate city, this place is still on the edge of chaos, and the war has not yet affected it. Refugees have appeared on the road early, wanting to leave this disaster place. On the chaotic streets, things are everywhere. 2 or 3 big demons are clearing obstacles in front, and a large number of demons are surrounding a team of hundreds of wizards and walking forward. Sitting on the demon warlord, Mist Ellen led her juniors to examine the war. The organized large-scale invasion of the Pharaoh Empire did not choose a terrible place like the Peak Fortress, but the surrounding areas. The damage to the territory is really difficult to estimate. Just as they wanted to leave, several gods with shields appeared in front of them. Unlike the angel legion of the God of Light, the gods of the God of Justice, Mylendal, are more like puppets, with full armor, empty inside, wearing shields, and have perfect attack and defense values. If we say that the God's messenger is an envoy sent by God himself to represent himself, then the God's servant is a creature born to fight for God. Many God's servants are created by God himself. For God, the Holy Spirit alone is not enough. The God's servants flying in the air are called Shield Apostles, level 120, can resist high spells and physical damage, and are quite difficult to deal with. A battle broke out. First update. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Buledin Lao Buledin Si Buledin Me. Chapter 369. The Pharaoh Empire attacked the underground world just when another empire was at war with the orcs. Unlike Saint Oteros, the will to attack the underground world was decided by the emperor, not the lord of the country. This determined that the war was the product of careful and sufficient preparation, and the purpose was to obtain the rich mineral deposits and treasures of the underground world, rather than simply to conquer. Few emperors were stupid enough to conquer the underground world that their ancestors had never been to for the sake of empty reputation. There were indeed such things in the past, but the facts proved that it was not worth it at all. When the patrol team led by Mist Ellen fought fiercely with the Shield Apostle of the Eye of Judgment, the Blood Knights led by Shen Qian also set up several temporary garrisons near the desolate city, which could advance or retreat and was difficult to be blocked by others. The elite of the Blood Cross followed the Blood Knights more than 10 kilometers behind them. After 4 or 5 hours of rapid march, they arrived 10 kilometers away from the desolate city. The tragic battle was almost coming to an end. Surrounding the desolate city, light and small catapults constantly destroyed the solid walls. What came into view was the well-trained ground army of the Empire, with infantry phalanxes in front and priest phalanxes and mage phalanxes in the back, scattered and clearly divided into several large legions. The scene in the desolate city was much more tragic, with corpses everywhere. The situation was on the side of the Pharaoh Empire. Dusk City had no support in the desolate city, but this fact could be discovered from the tattered walls. If the Blood Knight really rushed up stupidly, it would be like a sheep entering a tiger's mouth. Underground, Shen Xian's field of vision was very far away. Generally speaking, only he could discover others before others discovered him. When he decided to order the Blood Knight to retreat and prepare to wait for new reinforcements and unite with other players, he suddenly felt an inexplicably strong pressure hitting his heart through a distance of dozens of kilometers. It was a bit like a mental shock, causing him 27,000 damage. Shen Xian immediately used his skills to track down the person who hurt him with his mind, but found that it was a level 115 player. As expected, there were so many experts. The desolate city could not be saved this time. It took 10 minutes to retreat to a special area and set up several magic traps. The walls of the desolate city had been smashed by hundreds of small catapults, and many potholes had been formed. The high-level army could even enter the city. It was just to be on the safe side that more cannon fodder was consumed to ensure the greatest safety. Calicos and Lion, the two old guys, seemed to be in trouble. Shen Xian talked to himself when he saw this scene. However, Talango was closer to Dusk City, so the possibility of problems was much smaller. Shen Xian was wondering about the situation inside the desolate city. One way was to learn from the protagonist in the novel and rush in alone. Anyway, with his strength in the top 50, there were really few people who could stop him except for the demigod. Besides, he had an incarnation and was not afraid of death. But what should he do next? Help the two old guys drive the army back. But he was facing an empire. Not to mention the tens of millions of people, millions of soldiers, and countless generals. There were countless players affiliated with the Pharaoh Empire, and there were many large guilds and organizations. How could he possibly defeat them? Shen Xian couldn't do the feat of fighting the world alone, but he was absolutely confident that he could fight the world with a group of people. Shen Xian estimated the time. It would take 6 minutes to meet the Bloody Cross, 3 hours and 30 minutes to meet the Swordsman group and the Wizard group, and 6 hours and 20 minutes. It was a bit dangerous to rely on the Bloody Cross alone. Tujukan's generals were obviously more talented than his commanders, but now they had to fill the numbers. Shen Xian rode a shadow dragon alone into the desolate city in an absolutely cool and arrogant manner, causing uproar and noise along the way. There were not many dragon knights in the game, and most of them were common goods, such as bone dragon knights and silver dragon knights, while shadow dragons were relatively rare, and there were even fewer players who tamed shadow dragons. It was indeed deserved to receive such generous treatment. But Shen Xian is obviously not a dragon rider. The biggest difference between him and a genuine dragon rider is that the skills he has mastered are all separate, and there is no requirement to ride to release them, which greatly weakens the effect of his range attack. With the Soul Center, he resisted all the magic along the way. Several high-level players looked at his shiny black equipment with envy, hoping that it would suddenly fall off and then share a few pieces. The equipment holders on the leaderboard can be seen. It is rare for a lord to be alone, and how can the boss of a force not have a lot of good equipment? Therefore, the players and NPCs who know this fact all attack Shen Xian. Shen Xian, who has a lot of blood, is still in pain after being hit. If it weren't for the pressure from himself and the Shadow Dragon, his health would never be enough. There are many familiar players below, such as Freedom, Teres, and the world of Pasa, all of whom are old opponents in the first regional mission, as well as South Korea's Lineage, China's Iron Blood Man Club, and Japan's Gold Moon, which have risen in the past 6 months. After traveling thousands of meters, his health dropped to 2/3. Shen Xian didn't like to show off after all, so his figure flickered a few times strangely and disappeared over the wall of the desolate city, leaving behind a lot of curses from players and NPCs. When he appeared in the desolate city, Lion and Calicos had been waiting for a long time, jumped off the Shadow Dragon, and followed directly into the center of the city. "How is Mr. Shen Xian asked the first question. Because of her apprenticeship, Mr. needs to go to the deserted city from time to time for further training. Now seeing that there is no Mr. beside Ryan, Shen Xian asked subconsciously. Unexpectedly, Ryan told him that Mr. had gone to the north of the city, and Shen Xian could only continue to negotiate with them. A few points that need to be made clear are that Twilight City is obliged to rescue Desolate City. We are all subordinates of the fallen temple, but Desolate City is now in such a state of decay that it can really be said that it cannot be worse. Of course, the rescue could not be in vain. Shen Xian made several requests, such as recommending him to become a marquis, and training more talents for him. After these things were completed, they began to formally study how to rescue the crisis in the deserted city. Desolate City walls. Luna's body was covered in blood, and her armor had cracks caused by violent attacks. Opposite her were several players up to level 100, with only a few Black Knights and Terror Knights assisting her. Mr. Fang and several others were also there. Although the purpose of the game was for leisure, to be honest, he did not want the city where he stayed to turn into ruins. Fighting to the death, there is no longer a complete section of the city wall. The city wall with tens of thousands of health points was severely damaged by catapults. The deserted city does not have the defensive barrier of the Mage Tower, and it relies entirely on the city wall for defense. Desolate City is like an inland city. It does not have important defense responsibilities in the first place. It is basically undefended in the territory within dozens of kilometers of the city. These should be the affairs of the fortresses, mazes, and players scattered in the surrounding areas, but because the Pharaoh Empire destroyed the city's defenses, the deserted city was left vulnerable. Just as Shen Xian and the two were discussing how many troops needed to be sent, several knights ran in and said that the city gate was broken and the Empire's troops were pouring in. The faces of the two people changed drastically. This is really troublesome. Could it be that the deserted city is really going to fall? Staring at the ceiling, Calicos and Ryan couldn't see a trace of hope on their faces. It's too late now, unless that the three adults can do it themselves. Either go and take shelter first, Shen Xian suggested, take what you can take away, shrink the defense line, and let's escape along the northern road. There are 40,000 soldiers gathered outside the city center. There are still 50,000 soldiers fighting against surface forces in the city. Nearly 50,000 soldiers have died in previous battles. They are the player's private army and the garrison in the fortress. The army marched outwards, and the level 90 wizards summoned demons to support them. It was not enough for the demons to resist the enemy. It was not clear to anyone present that a demon could last for several seconds in front of a priest of the Eye of Judgment, so a simple sea of demons would not have much effect. Ryan then recited a spell, and several huge runes lit up from the top of the spell academy several kilometers away. Then, several demons sealed in the deserted city were released. There were 3 level 125 Abyss Lords in total. The 3 intact demons emerged from the underground of the academy and had been sealed for hundreds of years for research. The Abyss Lords who reappeared were extremely manic and did not distinguish between friend and foe. As for the hundreds of thousands of residents in the deserted city, the two of them glanced at the residents who were fleeing in panic in the city. They would be more or less purified. Even if they did not have the characteristics of good or evil, the church would still judge them as long as they were with evil. At the exit of the city center, rows of troops were layered to protect the two lords as they left. There were still many soldiers who needed to stay behind. What awaited them would be a road of no return. The two of them mounted their horses respectively, with Shen Xian riding on the shadow dragon. "Lord, there is one more thing I need to ask of you," Ryan said mysteriously but nervously. There was a small key in Shen Xian's hand. It was only half made of stone. This was not a key to a buried treasure, but a special foreign object that contained countless magic rules. A key can open something. Perhaps you have guessed it? This key is used to unlock a level 15 magic circle arranged underground in Desolate City. The other half is on Calicos. Since Desolate City has been repeatedly attacked and rebuilt by the surface world, this magic circle has also been used several times. This level 15 spell is called Corruption Barrier. After opening the enchantment, everything dozens of kilometers around Desolate City will turn into an abyss environment. As long as residents below level 15 stay inside, they will be corrupted in a short time. Become a demon and increase your level by 10 levels. Soldiers with higher levels will also be corrupted, but the process is long and often takes several years before it breaks out. In short, you can ask Calicos for the other half of the key to form a complete key, and then you can figure it out. Old guy, are you crazy? How many of these residents are relatives of soldiers? Do you want to turn them all into demons? Hearing Calicos's voice, Ryan also became angry. It's better than dying directly in the army of the Pharaoh Empire. I won't be merciful. Anyway, I decided to do this. When Ryan finished speaking resolutely, Calicos finally had to agree to his request. He had the wisdom of the devil and still retained a minimal amount of humanity, so he would refuse, but in the end, looking at the overall situation, he had to admit the significance of this thing. Major. The corruption barrier has been used 3 times in history, and each time it created hundreds of thousands of demons with an average level of 25, which repeatedly caused headaches for the armies in the surface world. Even the armies they entered were infected and turned into demons. Level 15 spells, in other words, this forbidden magic circle is really terrifying. Shen Xian immediately prepared to open the corruption barrier after getting the key. Otherwise, if he didn't consume some of the enemy's troops, even Dusk City would suffer the same disaster. The resistance continued, and the army of the Pharaoh Empire was advancing little by little. The elite were concentrated on dealing with the Abyss Lord. Shen Xian drove the Shadow Dragon and suddenly flew to the top of the Desolate City, where the magic circle was located. A vast earth dome like the starry sky, with stalactite-like cone rock columns hanging down, dust flying everywhere, and several shield apostles and bow apostles were patrolling everywhere. There were also several players. The Pharaoh Empire knew more or less about the corruption barrier and didn't want the disaster to happen, but they knew very little and could only take precautions. Shen Xian put the key on the magic circle, as if it was sucked in, and the key shattered instantly. The reddish-brown magic circle gradually absorbed power and became clear, emitting an evil glow. This move exposed Shen Xian's existence. Sensing the evil, the players blocked Shen Xian. Second update, 3K twice today. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 370. The Shadow Dragon's ethereal figure was like a submarine surfacing, which instantly shocked the player's heart. Several divine servants summoned by the Eye of Judgment directly besieged him, and the feathers of burning holy fire broke through the air and shot into Shen Xian's chest. I don't know why the Eye of Judgment suddenly had so many servants. The best explanation is probably that the gods were also watching this battle. When the player figured out Shen Xian's position, the two sides had been confronting each other in the dark for several seconds, covered in blood, and Shen Xian still had no changes. Detection. The player used perception to explore the magic circle above his head. It was indeed a corrupted barrier. The devil developed an evil method to destroy the world. The most basic condition for releasing this spell is to be above level 150, and then hundreds of lives need to be sacrificed to create such a terrible thing. Lord, you are so crazy, the player shouted, like a guard who punishes evil and promotes good. Unfortunately, the opponent seemed to be a Kuwaiti player. The language database of the country was not complete enough. Shen Xian could only listen to the seemingly correct translation and pout and attack. It takes a few minutes to open the corrupt barrier. During this period, it is best not to let the magic circle be attacked. The patrolling player called others in private chat, but he was killed by Shen Xian in more than 10 seconds. He was only level 85. After all, there were not many players above level 100. With such a big difference in level and equipment, players naturally could not hold on for a few minutes. Then came the Bow Apostle and the Shield Apostle. There was no such number of divine servants during the war in the other planes, but when attacking the underground world, dozens of divine servants appeared at once. Shen Xian felt that things were not so simple. Maybe there was some conspiracy hidden in it. What he had to do now was to open the corrupt barrier and then send Lion and Calicos to a safe place. The 120 level God Servant caused him great damage. The weapons used by the God's Legion usually have the characteristics of purifying evil. Fortunately, the God Servant is an elite, with more than a little lower attributes than him, and the health value is 1/3 of his, and it is difficult to hurt him quickly even with the attack bonus. Shen Xian himself does not care about the experience of killing monsters to level up. Since he can lie in the mansion and enjoy tens of millions of faith points every day, why waste time on these? Maybe others are plotting against him, why should he stay still stupidly? Shen Xian fought with the God Servant, dragging time while killing in the chaos, performing a classic aerial group killing battle in the eyes of others. After a few minutes, one of the God Servant finally fell down. The God Servant's dead and violent divine power law was stolen by Shen Xian. He felt the mystery, and then his body flashed, returned to the Shadow Dragon, and fled. Behind them, countless flesh and blood grew in the corrupt enchantment, like a horror movie. The fog of death enveloped the struggling deserted city. The air was sticky and humid. The residents who were still in the city were poisoned by the highly toxic gas one by one, and their bodies gradually changed and turned into demons. The soldiers who surrounded the city were released by the priests behind them to resist the disease. Despite this, the soldiers who had not experienced the bloody battle still showed low morale. After the encouragement of the commander, it took a long time for this negative effect to be lifted. However, something more terrible happened. Although the soldiers of the Empire were asked to chase the defeated army in the north, the demon army in the city rushed out driven by the chaotic nature. The demons have the same appearance as humans, except that their eyes are red and there is a demon mark on their foreheads, and their skin is a little dark. There is no difference. Facing their compatriots, the morale of the soldiers was hit again. The demons' attacks scratched the soldiers, and the soldiers would also be infected. This cycle repeats, and the perversion of the 15th level divine art is indeed reflected. Walking in the darkness, Shen Xian quickly joined the army in front. Looking at the road of pursuit, several vague magic circles have been set up. The teachers of the School of Spells stayed at the cost of their lives, just to delay time. Ryan and Calicos took away important information about the desolate city. The enemy will not want to know more secrets even if they capture the city. In the north, there is no army of the Pharaoh Empire. The God of Judgment is everywhere, sparsely distributed in the vast plains. After several battles, Mistreeling got rid of the entanglement of the god and hurried to join the exiled army. On the other side, in the small fortress in the north, tens of thousands of soldiers stepped up to move earth and stones under the command of the captain, and build fences and magic traps. Ryan, Calicos, and Shen Xian will arrive soon. Relying on the small fortress, they will establish a new line of defense here to prevent the enemy from breaking through. After discovering their actions, the pursuing players either waited and watched, waiting for an opportunity to move, or surrounded but did not attack, stationed on the spot, and prepared to wait for the arrival of the large force before attacking. The small fortress became a place for issuing tasks. The simple task of repairing defense facilities with a reward of experience was assigned. Many players from the surrounding area came, except Shen Xian. There were thousands of players who came for interests or other reasons. This fortress is the first line of defense, Calicos said to the players below. Before the rear defense line is ready, they must hold on here for a long enough time. And behind the fortress is a winding path leading to the surface and then back to the underground. Relying on the maze, we can carry out the second line of defense, Calicos continued to explain. Calicos told them the difficulties they would face, but it was unknown whether the enemy would appear from above. After all, the number of dark passages was so large that even the underground forces could not figure it out. Ryan and Shen Xian had an argument in another open space. Lord, you can't take these materials away. Aren't these technologies safest in Twilight City? Shen Xian asked him back. But the cunning Ryan saw his thoughts. Hey, don't think I don't know what you want to do. Isn't it just for the books in my hand? These are the accumulation of several eras in Desolate City. How can I give them to you for free? Ryan said firmly that even if Desolate City was broken, as long as the information was in hand, Desolate City would still be rebuilt one day. When I find apprentices, I will let them escort the books to Twilight City in person and keep them there temporarily. You don't need to worry about it now. Ryan himself was going to Peak Fortress or Fallen Temple to seek new reinforcements. Shen Xian thought about it and felt that it was okay, but the old man's defense against him made him a little sad. However, as long as these books were in Twilight City, they would not escape his control, even if Ryan's apprentices were guarding them. As long as a little bit of information could be stolen, the development of Twilight City in education would be unimpeded. 2K first.